Welcome to Women Engage, where real women talk about real issues. We're so glad you could join us on our program today. Please follow us on our website at www.ecdadventist.org. Click on Women Engage and get involved in our topics here. Write your comments, write your questions. We would love to engage with you. Today, our topic for discussion is the woman as a wife. And I have a panel of lovely ladies with me today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to you. And because we're talking about the woman as a wife, I'll ask you to tell me your name and tell me how many years you have been someone's wife. Okay, well, my name is Jocelyn Isabirye, and I have been Mrs. Isabirye for 18 years.
Wow. My name is Marianne Rasafia Rivoni. I've been married for 26 years.
My name is Debbie Maloba. I have been married for 18 years.
Wow. My name is Renee Mwamakamba. I've been married for 15 years.
My name is Evelyn Mbwambo Muhumuza, and I've been married for nearly 2 years.
My name is Yetunde Odeyemi. I've been married for over 30 years.
Wow, okay. So I love this. I love that.
Just had to.
On our panel here, we have those who are still in that sweet honeymoon stage. Yes, and then we have those that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So we're talking about our role as a wife. What is the importance of this role? Why is this such an important role in our lives?
I think the role of a wife goes beyond the words we can put to it. But I want to pick on the fact that the wife is a companion.
Yes.
And that makes it very important, that the man cannot stay all by himself. He needs a companion. And so the wife is a companion. Not only is she a companion, she's a trustworthy companion. And she's a partner. She's the one who, I like to say, who spins the wealth in the home, if you look properly.
I would say the role of a woman as a wife is that of encouraging and supporting the husband. Let me just put it at that.
I believe for me that it is again that I like that analogy of road. Is at one point he was alone, and then I get to enjoy part of the road with him. It's good company. And so on the road you learn new things, you share things, and you grow, and he grows, and you get to become more, to understand more the love of God, to understand the character of God. And I guess life would be very empty if it were not, for that road.
Well, we know that marriage was God ordained. In Genesis chapter 2, God himself said it is not good for a man to be alone. So marriage is God ordained. And so Marianne talks about that road that we journey. But sometimes I ask myself, when we view the blessing that being a wife is, do we really understand what the blessing of being a wife is? What is that blessing? Because what about when you are not feeling, sometimes, especially as young women, there's that pressure to get married. There's that pressure to get married. And it's almost as if marriage has become the end all and the be all of everything. It's like, it doesn't matter how talented you are, it doesn't matter how educated you are. If you are not married, there is something wrong with you. I mean, is that what God really meant for marriage to be? It's like something that you acquire to, and once you've got that ring on your finger, then it's done. That's it, you're set. Is that really what the blessing of marriage is?
I think when I understand the role of me being a wife, I have to pay attention to his needs. I have to bring him joy. I need to help him when he's in pain. That really means, it brings that meaning of being a blessing to my husband. When I'm closer to him, when I have a good relationship with him, I know that I'm a partner.
What happens when you're not? What happens when you're not closer to him? What happens when everything that you think was going to, that perfect, oh my goodness, oh, I'm married, that picture. What happens when you get there and it could be a day later, 2 days later, 2 years later, 4 years later? What happens when it's not that you've just described? Then what happens? Does marriage now cease to be a blessing?
I think it's a blessing from the way the Lord ordained it. Like you said, we all like to think we are into marriage because I have found a man or this man has found me. But it's more than that. It's the whole of a life walk. I have a friend, she's from a rich home and she's spoiled. She's never been to the market. She does not know how to go to the market. In Africa, we say the market is a social place. You go to the market and relate with those women, and it's a whole lifestyle. She didn't know it. Then she found a young man. And the young man, on the outside, you would have thought maybe he can't stand for what I'm saying. But when he married, before they got married, he asked questions. Are you able to, can you cook? She says, if I have the materials, I can cook. The man said, then let's go get the materials. So he took her to the market. She sits in the car. And then she says, what are we cooking? What do you want to buy? The man says, I'm not the one buying. You are the one to go and buy. In other words, this man took the patience to groom this girl. There was a day she went and she practically bought the vegetable. It was the worst one in the market. She wanted to buy from the first woman, and he was looking at her. He sent her back from the car. He said, you go inside, go check for the fresh one. The leaves have to be green. Don't buy one with yellow leaves. This is a man speaking to a woman. And she went, yes, she obeyed him, but in defiance, you know. She goes, she picks, and then she brings it and dumps it on his lap. And the man says, I don't care. I still love you all the same. And I'm willing that we grow old together. So it's not going to be all the time that it's, I'm with him, you know. With him, I take it to mean that we are together, we have an understanding. There are times when the understanding is not there. But it is still lovely to walk that road together if we choose to respect and understand one another. It takes time, but I think when you put on the cap of respect, it's easy to walk the road. Because somebody you respect, you don't go, yes, you see the faults, but you're not going to match out because of those faults. You say, let me stay, we do it together. Yeah.
I like what she said because I think also a lot has to do with making a choice. When I married my husband, I chose to marry him.
Yes.
And so from the day we get together, after that, it's actually a subconscious choice to wake up and look at what's good, to wake up and say, I love him unconditionally. Because when I think, I mean, we talk about the spiritual side of marriage, and when you think of how God loves us, I think marriage is really like a boiling pot where you understand that is it possible to love someone when they are not being their best? Sometimes you need help in the kitchen, you call, and he will come and sit. It's company. So now for me to define, am I going to be upset that he's not taking a pot and cutting and, you know, or am I going to be appreciative of the fact that at least he's come to sit with me? So it's the way of choosing to think on the bright side, choosing to think of the good and focusing on that as compared to just having an opinion about character and saying, but he's not good enough because I'm not good enough. That's what marriage has taught me. Yeah.
I think it also is related to the fact that from the God, I believe God in some way helps the person to choose. You know, he puts people together. Somehow you happen to be at the right time, at the right place with the right person. So I'd like to think of marriage that way. Even if it is not working, even if it is not in the best. And I read many, many years ago a very nice story about, it's a book actually, it's that man who got sick, actually. They were married, they had a good marriage. The man got sick mentally. He would do the craziest thing. And that woman kept thinking, did I make a wrong choice? Did I choose the wrong guy? But he was sick. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was not, I mean, he just was not mentally sane anymore. And then at one point the man left her. She had 2 kids. He left her. And then a few months after, he called and he said, I'm coming back home. And so she said right there and then in the book, she says, I decided, am I going to accept that man again and live through that hell again? Or am I going to just say, no, don't come back again? But then she remembered all that time they have had together, the good times. And then she went to the airport and she saw him. Apparently, he has been living in the Salvation Army, those places where he was living, getting food every day and everything. He was coming down there dejected. The clothes were, shabby. People have put clothes on him. He was coming home. She looked and she said in a flash of a second, she knew she was the right person for him. Because when she was small, her mother was always sick. So she's lived in a home where sickness was very common. So she immediately related and said, God has put me there to take care of that man. Wow. She took him in, she cared for him until he died. Wow. So you see, sometimes it is not always nice, lovely, rosy, like you were saying. But when we believe that somehow God has a greater plan, it does put things in perspective. It's not easy. I'm not saying that it will be easy, but still, knowing that perspective helps a lot.
Yes. There's a quote that I heard that just impacted me so much. And someone said, marriage was not designed for your happiness. God designed marriage for your holiness. Yes. And I remember the very first time I heard that quote, it just hit me. And it made me think, it's not that God doesn't want me to be happy. And it's not even that I cannot be happy in my marriage, but we sometimes get so caught up in this thing about being a wife. From the time when you're young, as a little girl, it's like you're told, basically you're going to grow up and be someone's wife. So it becomes an end, and we think that's how we're going to be happy in life. And then if anything falls short of our expectations, we become dejected. But it just made me think, what is the purpose when God said man should not be alone? Marriage is not for my happiness. He didn't design it for my happiness. He's more interested in my holiness. Wow. So we're just going to pause there and take a commercial break. We will be back to talk about our role as wives. Welcome back to Women Engage. And today we're talking about the woman as a wife. So just before we went on our commercial break, Marianne was sharing with us an experience from a book. What was the title of that book and the author, Marianne?
The title is Though He Slay Me, written by Miriam Wood. It's printed many years ago, but I think you can find it. You can, if you ask them, they are still printing it, because I read it not very 5-6 years ago. Okay. So Though He Slay Me.
Yeah, that's a powerful story. And we see from that, and even during our break we were sharing as women, and there are so many other examples that there are challenges that come. Like in this case, good marriage, very successful man, you've married into the right kind of, and then he becomes ill and the whole world changes. So marriage is going to be full of challenges. Some we can anticipate, some we cannot even in our wildest dreams imagine that they will be things that we will have to deal with. How do we deal with the challenge of being a wife in these kind of circumstances?
I think when we take it from the woman of Proverbs 31, I know many people don't like to talk about that woman. They think she's too ideal. But if you break it down and you take it in the bits and the pieces, you would find that the answer to bearing the challenges of a wife is there in the Bible. And that is the fact that that's verse that says that she does good to her husband all the days of her life. I have a real life example. The man was good, okay, when he got married. One day he wakes up, he's not thinking right. He does not even know who he is anymore. And this woman, everybody says, are you going to stay? She said, yes, I'm staying. Why? She said, when I was considered a poor girl, this man said, is this poor girl I would like to marry? He cannot be kept on a job. This woman works. She has built a home, a house, put the man inside. If you see her, you can't know she's able to build a house. She looks too simple, but she goes to work every day. And do you know when she's coming back from work, who is there at the bus station to receive her? Is that man. He knows the bus station where to meet his wife, yet he's ill, his mind is deranged, but he never forgets that she has to come home. He never forgets to care for her in his own way. You know, when you hear such an example, you wonder, why will a woman who has been called, is a calling, is a responsibility the Lord has laid on us, is something we will give account of at the end of the day. Let us not think it's just about, yes, the man will buy us clothes. The Bible says it's his right to buy us clothes. It's his right to provide food. It's his right to put money in our hands to take care of the home. And by the way, that money is never enough. I don't know which woman gets enough housekeeping allowance, but it's okay. It's the man's right. He puts it
Does
in our
every
hands.
woman even get a housekeeping allowance?
You know? But at the end of the day, just like we give an account on our children, we're going to give an account on this man. How have we cared for him? How have we played that role of the better half? And I think the challenges, we can talk about them from now until the cows return from the fields, but they will always be there. And the Lord makes the room for a woman to know how to cope with these challenges. Yeah, except when we choose not to cope. When we choose to look at it and say, I can go through this.
I like what Yetunde was talking about. Being a wife is actually a calling. I thought that was very powerful.
Yes.
My favorite female Bible character is Abigail. And we don't hear a lot about her in the Bible. We're told she's a woman of beauty, great beauty, but also great understanding. We know that she's the woman who King David in the Bible had asked for this wealthy man. And he said, please, can I have some of your sheep with my men? We've been taking care of your flocks and all that. And it was the time for celebrations. And he was not asking something unusual. And this rich man says, you know, who are you? You know, insults David. And David got so enraged, he said, we're going to kill this guy today and all his family because we've been taking care of him all this time. And we hear Abigail comes and covers her husband and with all this wisdom. And in the end, the evil husband dies and David chooses Abigail to be his wife. But I so admire Abigail. I mean, there's so many women in the Bible that we can admire, but I admire Abigail because I think, how easy is it to be a beautiful woman? Yes, that's easy. But a woman of understanding when your husband is a fool. You know, basically the Bible tells us that man is a fool. He's wicked. He's a fool. How easy is it to be a woman of honor and dignity and respectability when your husband is a fool? That's a big challenge. And yet she stayed with her husband. She was faithful to him. And you know, sometimes I think, you know, that's hard. Especially when the man does something annoying. You don't want to cover his mistakes. You want him to feel the pain of that mistake because you did it and I told you and you didn't listen to me. You know, and to see a woman who could be like that, I admire that. And that special job that God has given to prepare me for holiness, to use my marriage and my relationship to make me holy and to be a blessing to others. That's powerful. That's powerful. Any other thoughts about how we can manage the challenge of marriage?
Yeah, just to add on what you were saying, I think the challenge comes mostly, let me say my own experience, comes from the society. It expects a lot from you as a wife. And all this pressure, I mean, they can come from your friends, your relatives, your in-laws, and so you're there trying to fix, okay, how am I going to do all this at a go? Someone expects you when you're married, your husband has to look a certain way, and if he's not within this time, you've failed. So all these challenges, the only way to go about them, or rather how I went about them, I was like, how does God looks upon the church? That relationship that he has, that's the same one that he wants me in my marriage to have, because he considers my husband as the head of the wife. So I have to delight in whatever I do to him, be it respect, giving him respect, being submissive, all these things. And they cannot come automatically. You have to just decide and by choice that this is what I have to do. Sometimes it's not easy because you're like, I even do this one better than him. I mean, you know, all those things and you're caught in that mess, but still God wants you to actually do what he wants you to do. Be a noble character woman in that home.
I just want to say on top of what she's saying, so I think another great challenge that marriage has is expectations.
Oh, yes.
Because I think we go in there, maybe when I got married, I had this, you know, wow, I'm going to be a wife, I'm going to do this and he's going to do that.
Yeah.
And then with time you discover that no, this is not what marriage is about. Marriage is actually real life. There's no pretty roses and, you know, every day and things like this. And so I find that when we come to terms with reality, I remember speaking to, I think I was talking to one of the young wives, and I was saying, we don't have the transition period sometimes as a young wife from dating to wife. When you are dating, he's doting on you and every second he's thinking of you. When you get married, it changes because responsibility comes. You know, God made man to be responsible. And that automatically kicks in for him. I have my wife, I must provide. But I'm still there. Roses, flowers, dates. And yes, and chocolates. And it takes time for you to transition. So I always think that expectations can be a great challenge because when we don't find a balance to put ourselves and also to communicate about what we expect, we find that as a wife, you always feel that my marriage is failing. I don't think I married the right person. He doesn't love me. Because what you are expecting isn't what's happening on the ground. So that's a big challenge, I think, that sometimes we fail to reckon with. Yeah.
And do you think also we get caught up in the trying to see what other people are doing? Because I was just listening to what you were talking about, and you were talking about chocolates and roses during dating, and I was like, my husband did not do the chocolate and roses during, and we dated for 4 years. And so should I all of a sudden now start thinking, oh my, no, you know, our relationship was terrible and all of that. And that's the thing, I start listening to Renee and I'm thinking, there must be something wrong with my relationship. Because I don't have her roses and her, and I think that's also a very big problem. That we make judgments about the success or failure of our relationship, not even from just our own expectations, but because of comparisons that we make with other people. And I want my husband to treat me the way that Marianne's husband treats her. And if he doesn't, then he must not love me. And that creates a lot of difficulty.
A lot of tension.
I'm sure you have heard of this joke. It's been around for some time. The man who opens the door for his wife, the car door, and the other woman sits and tells his wife, her husband, you never opened the door for me. And the husband only looks at her and he goes about his business. So one afternoon they were to go visit somebody from church. And this man who usually would open the door for his wife did not. The wife opened the door of the car, came out, and this other lady was like, hey, are they quarreling? There must be something. And so she was so pressed that she had to ask the man to say, so what is different now? You don't love her anymore? The man was like, what? What are you saying? You didn't open the door. Oh, the man said, now the car door has been repaired. It's been bad for years.
She can open for herself.
So she can open for herself. And so you see, truly what you are saying about comparing, comparisons, there's no other me. Permit me to use myself. There's no other person who would be the way I am. God did something special to give one original like this. And each person is special in their own way. And so the books may say so many things. But when you go back to the Bible and you look at it, you find that God even has a sense of humor in creating marriage. He expects us women to grow into being a wife. Yeah. like Renee said, there's no transition, there's no apprenticeship. And that's why I say a woman grows into being a wife. As you see events, you begin to mature. You decide, this is the step I will take. I want to keep this. I would like to keep this. I keep it this way. And then life goes on. Life will always come with its challenges anyway. So it's not that we went to look for it as women. But when it comes, how do you sit with it?
So ladies, as we conclude our program this evening, if you could just give one final thought to our audience listening today about the role of a woman as a wife, what is that thought that you'd like to leave with your audience?
I'd like to put it in the perspective of marriage is not only two people, but it is a trio. It is the husband, the wife, and God. So as a wife, you know that you're not alone. And you know that you have been called to be side by side with your husband. So enjoy it and count on the help.
Challenges will always come, but be ready to handle them with God. God is there, He will help you, and your marriage will move forward because God loves you.
Amen. Marriage is a wonderful institution, and I think I love to look at marriage as something that's for eternity. And when I think that it's for eternity, I know that God doesn't put us into situations where He wants us to fail. Never think of a back door. Never think of the way out. Think of how God wants for eternity. And if He's made it for eternity, you can enjoy it. You can embrace it, and you can have a wonderful marriage because God enables that to happen.
Marriage is a beautiful thing that can happen to a human being, and in this case to a woman. But it comes with the responsibility from God Himself. And since He's the one who has given you such responsibility, He will help you to fulfill them.
I would like to say to every woman out there that you are very important. For God to call you to be the soulmate of another person, I think is a huge responsibility which we should gladly accept and tell God, you have placed me here, you will not let me fail. And based on that, he pulls us through. Yeah, He's the only one who can say it is okay. When He says it's okay, then it is okay. So it gets okay with God.
Amen.
Today we've been talking about the woman's role as a wife. And we've discussed the fact that our marriages are a blessing. Not because we become happy or excited or because we're someone's wife, but because God has given us a special role, a calling, something to prepare us and our character for holiness, but also to help to be a blessing to others. As we end our program today, whatever challenge you might be facing, take it to the Lord. Take your calling to the one who has given it to you, and He will enable you to make it work. Join us next time on our program, Women Engage. And meanwhile, please log on to our website, www.ecdadventist.org, and get involved with our discussion. God bless you.